Hi, all. Welcome. We're going to let folks sort of filter in, and we'll probably get started in just a couple minutes. I'm really excited just to see this amazing turnout today for our talk on distributed power plants and what the heck they are. Um, Couple technicals. We are recording, but you will not be recorded in any way. We're just recording ourselves. And unfortunately, we won't be able to facilitate live questions from the audience, but we will be able to answer as many as we can at certain periods during the presentation. Um, we have a Q&A chat that should just be an option down on that bottom bar on your screen. So you can start to put your questions in there now if perhaps there's anything you're hoping to get out of today's presentation. Go ahead and put those questions in as they come up, and we're going to do our best to answer them. And then if we can't get to them in the session today, we're going to hopefully be sending up a follow-up email to sort of try to get folks those answers and hopefully follow-up resources as well. The good note for next time is have some music. Um, all right. Thanks for folks that are coming on in. We're gonna get started in just a minute or so. And as I just mentioned, we have a Q&A chat. We won't be able to sort of take live questions, but we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can today. And yeah, maybe Kensley, you can just let us know we sort of hit a critical mass and we'll get going.
I think that we are, or they are, we're good to go. If people keep trickling in, that will be the case, but let's get going.
Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, hi everyone. Officially, welcome. Thanks for joining us here at Solar United Neighbors, or we call it SUN for short, to learn more about distributed power plants. My name's Laura, and I'm part of the DPP campaign team. And I'm really excited to welcome our speakers here today. We have Shannon Anderson, who is our Solar United Neighbors Distributed Power Plant Program Director, and Sean Malone is our Distributed Power Plant Technical Analyst. And they're going to be explaining to you today about distributed power plant programs, and also how we here at Sun are championing DPPs. But before we get there, I do just want to tell you a little bit about who we are here at Sun. Um, we are a national nonprofit that is basically helped over 11,000 families and small businesses and nonprofits go solar. And effectively, we are trying to help folks go solar and fight for their energy rights. And we facilitated a lot of just great activities, including advocacy and policy work and jobs in the solar industry. So what we do, our sort of theory of change, is we help folks go solar, and then we help them join together, and then we help them fight for their energy rights. And this is so important because distributed power plant programs in general, they need a lot of advocacy. They need a lot of boots on the ground. Um, and they're also, they're a win-win for consumers, especially as you're trying to pay for your system. Um, but we're also have equity in mind. I think that's the other beautiful thing about DPPs is what makes them really exciting is that it really is putting our values into practice. Not only are we helping everyone save money with the program, we're also helping you generate revenue if you own a solar and battery system yourself. So I'm going to turn things over to Sean, and he's just going to get us started and walk us through like what the heck are DPPs.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm Sean Malone. I'm the distributed power plant technical analyst, as Laura mentioned. Okay, so we can get into it. So, just what is a distributed power plant? Next slide. Well, simply put, distributed power plants are essentially a crowdsourced power plant. We have the technical definition up on the screen, but let's back up a bit and put everything into context. Next slide, please. Let me first explain how we typically get our power. So utilities, they must meet electricity demand at all times. Legally, our grid has to be responsive, flexible, and always on. This usually means using a centralized power plant that balances supply and demand. If demand is high, a utility company might have to increase production. And if they don't have enough juice, they outsource to a peaker plant, which burns fossil fuels to temporarily add extra supply. Next slide, please. But now with distributed power plants, homes and businesses with solar, batteries, and smart devices can help meet this demand. In other words, your building can become a resource for the grid. Distributed power plants, also known as virtual power plants or VPPs, are coordinated networks of customer-owned devices like batteries, smart thermostats, and electric vehicles that work together to support the power grid. Individually, these devices are referred to as DERs, or distributed energy resources. Next slide, please. If you think of a distributed power plant as a crowdsourced power plant, then distributed energy resources are like the individual contributors. Now, a quick question for all of you. We're going to launch a poll. When during the day are you using the most energy? Give it another 10 seconds here.
Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty with my poll.
Oh, no worries. Well, we'll skip over it. But I'm sure most of us would agree that it's probably in the evening when everyone gets home from work, right? We're cooking, we're washing clothes, um, doing the dishes. So that is the time where energy is most consumed. Next slide, please. So let's picture this. A solar system on a sunny day in California produces more power than needed in the middle of the afternoon. So it stores that energy in its battery. At 7 p.m., a distributed power plant aggregator asks the battery and others like it to discharge some of that stored power to the grid to offset a spike in demand. Suddenly, a distributed power plant is eliminating the need to outsource to a peaker plant. And this really happened this past summer in California. Sunrun's distributed power plant dispatched over 340 megawatts of energy during the evening peak. That's enough to power nearly 200,000 homes. So you can see how powerful these community scale networks can be in replacing peaker plants. Next slide, please. How exactly does this work? When demand spikes or grid reliability is a risk, the distributed power plant operator calls on enrolled devices to act. Batteries discharge, thermostats adjust, and electric vehicle charging pauses. These micro actions add up. So instead of a gas plant firing up, we rely on community powered resources that are quick to respond and cheaper to operate. Next slide, please. One of the most important parts of a distributed power plant is knowing when to use customer resources. The timing matters a lot. Smart management is what turns these devices into flexible grid support tools. Next slide. So to do that, a distributed power plant uses a software platform called a distributed energy resource management system, or we could call it DERMS for short. A DERMS coordinates all these devices and dispatches instructions and reroutes power based on what the grid needs. Sometimes DERMS platforms are managed by a third party like Sunrun or Virtual Peaker, or directly by a utility, but the key is central coordination. That's what turns many distributed energy resources into a distributed power plant. With that being said, hopefully the acronym SOUP is starting to make a little bit of sense here. Next slide, please. So who can participate in the distributed power plant program? Well, participation is broad and growing. Anyone with a battery, an electric vehicle, a smart thermostat, or solar system can be eligible depending on the program. Typically, the core component of any distributed power plant program is battery storage. While not all programs allow thermostats, electric vehicles, and other distributed energy resources to be enrolled, battery storage is almost always the core part of a program. Next slide, please. There are programs that are broader and include a wider array of distributed energy resources. Someone who enrolls in a program could be a renter with a connected Google Nest thermostat or an electric vehicle. In exchange, you receive compensation for the power you share, but you still keep power at all times. Next slide, please. So just who controls a distributed power plant? Well, control can rest with several parties: utilities, third-party aggregators, or original equipment manufacturers like Tesla or Generac. And increasingly, utilities are partnering with software companies to manage these programs. Next slide. Now, a great example is what's happening in Puerto Rico. Their distributed power plant is called the Customer Battery Energy Sharing Program, or CBES for short. The distributed power plant there is managed by a combination of original equipment manufacturers and third-party aggregator companies. The utility is not involved in the actual dispatching and control of people's batteries. Pictured here is just one original equipment manufacturer, Tesla, and how it responded to a grid event in July of this year. As you can see, this network of Tesla Powerwalls was able to feed over 45 megawatts of back into the grid by aggregating and dispatching nearly 54,000 batteries. In this instance, Puerto Rico was actually able to avoid an island-wide blackout due to the additional power supply provided by the batteries dispatched. In fact, Puerto Rico's distributed power plant was able to prevent blackouts many times throughout the high-demand summer season in 2025. Now, with that considered, you might imagine what a difference a fully connected network of different devices and battery manufacturers could do. It might even eliminate the need to build another centralized plant again in some areas. Next slide, please. Right now, distributed power plants are live in 25 states. They reduce emissions, they cut costs, and they make the grid more resilient. This is the future of energy. But you might be thinking, this is all great, but I just spent a lot of money on my system and my battery. I'm still paying this thing off, so what's in it for me? And this is another reason why DPPs are so cool, because while distributed power plants benefit everyone, participants get compensated. And now to talk more about that and the total benefits of distributed power plants is our distributed power plant policy director, Shannon Anderson. And Laura, next slide, please.
Yeah, Shannon, do you want to pause and try to answer a few questions that maybe Kensley's gathered first, or do you want to keep going?
Yeah, we can take a little break here. If anybody has a question that we really, maybe the first one, Sean, if you see it from Aaron, might be a good one, just to level set a little bit.
Yeah. So Aaron said, you said 340 megawatts of energy, but a watt is a measure of power. Can you clarify? Well, simply put, I mean, yeah, there's the technical definitions, but the point there was that there was 340 megawatts of energy put into the grid at the peak time. So that was the amount of energy that was put into the grid at the highest amount of time. So in that 340 megawatt peak, at that point, that's enough to power 200,000 homes. Shannon, if you want to add to that, feel free.
Awesome, thanks. And then a couple other questions that I see, Sean or Shannon, if you all can answer these, and maybe you're getting to them, but a couple people have asked about DPPs where they live or VPPs where they live. So we had a question, is this legal in all states? Is it available in all states? And then specifically, we have a couple people asking about the availability in Virginia and Washington, D.C. Any response there?
Yeah, we'll get into some of those states here in a minute. So stay tuned on that, I think.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, and keep the questions coming, folks. Excited to have a discussion with you at the end of the program. So, hi everyone. As Sean mentioned, I'm Shannon. I'm Sun's Distributed Power Plant Policy Director. I live in Wyoming and work nationwide around distributed power plants. So excited to have so many of you join today and have this good conversation with you. So yeah, next slide. So based on our research and experience, the best programs for distributed power plants provide clear compensation, accessible technology, and customer-friendly opt-in and opt-out options. Sun has designed a model program that ensures that customers know what they're signing up for and that they don't get locked into a program that doesn't work for them. While compensation models can vary widely across different programs based on your particular situation with your utility and different kind of parameters of rate design, the best programs typically offer up to $1,500 a year in revenue for participating homeowners. And when it comes to compensation models and consumer protections, this is where Sun is really working to standardize programs using our model policy, tariff, and champion legislation across the country to ensure that homeowners get the maximum benefits that they're allowed to get in these programs. Next slide. So back to the value of distributed power plants. The Brattle Group is a nationally recognized firm that analyzes energy policy and other issues. They found that by rapidly deploying distributed power plants around the country, we can save customers tens of billions of dollars. And that's because distributed power plants cost 40 to 60% less than any other generation resource available to a utility. So that's less than peaking gas plants and even less than utility scale solar and storage. Distributed power plants cost less because all the utility needs to do is run the program. They don't have any capital expenses since customers are bringing their own distributed energy resources to the table. Next slide. And as we just discussed, distributed power plants will help save all of us money on our electric bills. But distributed power plants do much more than that. They also create a future with clean energy because they enable more people to install solar-powered batteries. They turn electrification from being a potential problem for the grid into a solution when heat pumps and electric vehicles participate in programs. Next slide. And with energy demand rapidly rising and our bills rapidly rising too, distributed power plants are the solution we need. They can be deployed now, harnessing existing technology and distributed energy resources that are already operating at customer homes. So we don't need to wait for permitting and construction, meaning programs get set up and running in months, not years. Next slide. So right now, and this gets to some of your questions, Sun's been active in over a dozen states and places around the country working to pass legislation and stand up distributed power plant programs. We're proud of the work we're doing together across the country, but this is also just the beginning, and we'll be doing more into the new year and beyond. So this map just shows you some of the states we've been active in the legislative side of things, the regulatory side of things. You'll probably see a lot of your states on this map. For some of you that maybe aren't seeing your state kind of shaded in, that doesn't necessarily mean there's not a distributed power plant program in your state. We also, on our website, we do have a list of other programs that are already in place. So we're not advocating for those programs because they already exist. So states like Utah and others that, have programs. So feel free to, look at our website as well, and I'll get you some more information about the programs that are available and what may be going on in your neck of the woods. So next slide. So breaking down some of our initial successes, in Arizona, we helped adopt a program there with Arizona Public Service, and actually the other two major utilities in Arizona also stood up programs this year. So Tucson Electric Power and SRP. So all three utilities in Arizona launched programs just this year that are enabling customers to sign up their batteries and participate in programs starting probably next summer to really get that compensation for, as Sean explained, kind of the peak grid savings opportunity for those utilities. As those of you in Arizona know, and I've seen a couple of your names already today, you know that Arizona is quite hot in the summer, and these programs really do have a benefit for Arizonans in terms of reducing that peak demand that is very extreme in summer months with extreme heat these days. And then I think your cursor is actually over. There we go. In Puerto Rico, as Sean explained, we work to really help this program rapidly expand this year. So the program was 38 megawatts last year. It is 500 megawatts this year. 81,000 people in Puerto Rico are participating in this program. It's a huge success to really show the opportunity of distributed power plants. It's also, I would note, one of the most simplest programs in the country. It up until now has just ran through an email system where the utility connects with the battery manufacturers and other companies that aggregate these resources. So it doesn't require expensive or difficult technology or the utility kind of orchestrating everything on its end. It's a very simple design and works incredibly well to be cost effective for customers in Puerto Rico. Okay, next slide. Oh, I think you skipped one. Okay, well, maybe we don't have that slide anymore. Well, there we go. Yeah, we had a couple of other states we were gonna highlight, but I think yeah, actually we skipped one before this. Sorry. Yes. So back in Colorado and Maryland, these are programs that we've worked to get going this year. So both of those states passed legislation in 2024, and their utilities are working through program design right now. In Colorado, we worked with other industry partners and allied organizations to create a settlement agreement with the main utility there, Xcel Energy. That settlement agreement has been approved by the Utility Commission, and that program will start enrolling customers this spring and will be active for the 2026 summer season. In Maryland, their utilities are a little bit farther behind. Unfortunately, their initial proposals were not as robust as we wanted them to be. And the commission, in response to public comments from Sun and other organizations, required the utilities to file amendments to their programs in January. So we'll be looking for that. We're hoping utilities are going to set up programs that are as robust as the statute allows them to be. For Baltimore Gas and Electric, that'd be about a 135 megawatt program. So could have a lot of folks participating in that program. Okay, sorry to skip that. All right, now we can go back to our questions.
So we have a ton of questions, but there is one I definitely want to get out of the way first, which is what is the difference between DPPs and VPPs?
Yeah, so happy to take that. They're exactly the same thing. So, as Sean mentioned early on, distributed power plants are also known as virtual power plants. Here at Sun, we've been using the term distributed power plants because it centers distributed energy resources within the policy solution. The virtual part is really just the technology that kind of orchestrates all the resources together, but they're very much real resources. They're located at your home, at businesses in your community. And so we really believe that distributed power plant is a much more accurate term to describe the policy. Sometimes you'll also hear these programs described as like community energy programs, or again, as Sean said in Puerto Rico, it's the customer battery energy sharing program. So often you will hear these programs described in different ways. Sometimes it's a bring your own device program. But they're all basically the same thing. Again, using customer resources, orchestrating them and deploying them together like a traditional power plant would. And that's the power plant part of the name.
Yeah, I'll just say that we here at Sun are kind of on a mission to brand it as a DPP, but or as a distributed power plant officially. But if you hear in your state, maybe the legislation is going to be called a virtual power plant program or something similar. There a lot of what these programs rest on is distributed energy resources or DERs, which is another contribution to the alphabet soup. But there's really virtually no difference, except we think that DPP makes more sense as because it is a real thing. It's not virtual in any way. Okay, so John Welke just wanted to note that it's very interesting to hear about all the ownership models, either through municipal models or local co-ops. And actually, that just does bring up a point, which Sean, I know that in Puerto Rico, there's actually is a group that is organizing themselves to be an aggregator. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. In Puerto Rico, there's a co-op called Abeno, which does great work. They work in a community that has been just destroyed by storms over and over. I mean, flooded 5 times in just the last couple decades completely. So they worked on building energy resilience there. One of their latest projects, which we're involved in, is trying to help them become an actual aggregator, third-party aggregator themselves in Puerto Rico, meaning that they would actually be the one dispatching the batteries whenever there's a grid event, such as a supply shortfall in Puerto Rico. And in turn, they would handle the compensation to whoever is in their fleet of batteries, and just generally manage those resources within their community.
Sure. And then Shannon, you think you believe he's actually referring to rural electric co-ops? Is that
Yeah, so I think the question refers to, not just investor-owned utilities, but municipal utilities. So those are utilities ran by municipal government, and then the rural electric cooperatives, which are very prevalent in rural America across the country, as we all know. There are programs from municipal utilities and rural electric cooperatives. I would say they're a minority right now. And partly, as you know, they're not regulated by a utility commission in the same way. And so the legislation that Sun supports and has been adopted in Maryland, Colorado, Virginia, and Illinois now don't actually apply to rural electric cooperatives. But there's opportunity for rural electric cooperatives to just kind of create programs on their own. Most programs would just require a decision from the board of directors of that rural electric cooperative to get a program going. So we're really interested in working with those of you around the country that maybe do advocacy before your rural electric cooperatives boards, if you're a co-op member, get in touch with us and we're happy to kind of think through what an opportunity could be for you if you're not a utility customer of an investor-owned utility.
And we're going to get into all the electric vehicle questions in just a sec. I did just want to let Matthew know. Matthew, if you go to our DPP site, so solarunitedneighbors.org/DPP, we do have a list. It's not fully comprehensive, but we have a list of the programs, like some of the best programs in the country. But I guess that does raise the question, if how do you find out if there's a DPP program or a bring your own device program in your area? Shannon or Sean, what do you think the best way to do that, go about that is?
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, yeah. Because we only offer a partial list on our website for available DPP programs, like what if you just live in any old state, like what's the best way to sort of go through and find out if you can participate in a program, if there's something in your area that's available?
Yeah, I would
Right.
say
Right.
contact our solar help desk. And we can put that info in the chat as well. We're available to answer questions, kind of walk through what programs may be available from your utility. So just, yeah, get in touch with us at Sun, and we're happy to kind of answer those questions for you.
Great, great. Okay, so another question. I have an electric car. Can it be used as a battery for a DPP?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as Sean, showed on the slide, electric vehicles can certainly be part of a distributed power plant program in two ways. And I saw another question related to this as well. So there's often what's called like managed charging, where a utility kind of has a program where you get compensation or benefits for charging your electric vehicle at certain times of the day versus other times of the day. And that helps reduce peak power needs for the utility because you're charging your vehicle at smart times of the day. But what we want to see in these programs is not just that, but also what's called vehicle to grid technology, or really the bidirectional aspect of your electric vehicle battery and exporting some of that power to the grid. Unfortunately, that technology is pretty early days still, but there's a number of pilot programs that are going on with utilities and electric vehicle companies, and again, the aggregators of these resources to help manage these programs for utilities. And the results have been incredibly promising in terms of the value that electric vehicle homeowner can receive from these programs and the value of that battery to the grid. Electric vehicles have, as folks with them know, large batteries compared to even a home battery system. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's some challenges, of course, with, they leave your garage. Folks want to have their batteries charged for their morning commutes. So it's a little bit harder than a stationary battery just at your home to kind of manage within a program. And that's why there's a lot of just like pilot programs still. But again, the technology is getting better and there's tremendous opportunity for using electric vehicles as a grid resource.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to put in a couple of quick URLs into the chat. That's for the help desk. If you want to learn more about a program in your area or potentially, and then if you want to just go to our site to see the list of programs that we like endorse, right? Either we've helped set them up, or we think that they are a really sort of a good program that we can get behind. Sort of what we talked about in the presentation. It's Solar United Neighbors .org /DPP. DPP. All right, so let's put that in the chat for you. Okay, so we got a lot of questions here. Some of them are a bit more technical, and we'll try to get to those in a minute. I'm trying to get to maybe some of the broader questions that we have here. Oh, yeah, here's a really big one. What type of legislation is required? Must it come from state legislature, or can it be PSCP, or can like the public utility company do it?
Yeah, programs actually do not need enabling legislation to move forward. And there have been programs, as I mentioned, in Utah and some other places that just kind of came directly from the utility itself, proposing that to the utility commission. So programs can definitely start that way. At Sun, we really believe, though, that the legislation and the directive and political support behind a program is really critical to program success. And we've seen this play out where, again, utilities proposing programs like, say, Arizona Public Service versus, say, a Colorado program that was enabled and required by legislation. There's a significant difference in just the political inertia behind a program. So we are really supportive of statewide legislation to get that political support behind these programs, but we're also working in a number of regulatory dockets before utility commissions around the country where maybe there hasn't been legislation in place yet either. So either way, either through a utility proposal that then gets commission reviewed, or through kind of a legislative approach where there's a legislative directive for a utility to file a program before a commission. Either way, it gets to the commission.
Thanks, Shannon. I just want to remind folks that we unfortunately can't take live questions. But if so, unfortunately, raised hands, we can't answer those directly. But if you put your question in the Q&A box, we'll try to get to it. And if we don't get to it today, we'll be following up with as many answers as we possibly can give you. So I'm sorry, but unfortunately, we can't call on raised hands in this format. Um, Another question about what about the availability of companies to run the DERMs? Are they nationwide? And does that business need to grow extensively in some states? Like, are they into, like, you could tell us a little bit more about these aggregators that we were talking about, perhaps.
Yeah, Sean, do you want to take that one?
The question is about the availability of terms.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how are these aggregators in the mix? Are they national, stateside? Yeah. What's
Yeah.
the
So
makeup?
yeah, there's already companies that provide the software to coordinate lots of small devices, which is what we refer to as DERMS, which is what the question was referring to. Some utilities work with big national vendors, other use smaller regional firms, but typically there's some larger companies like one that comes to mind, for example, is Energy Hub. Um, and Occasionally utilities may build their own DERMS systems to handle the dispatching of distributed energy resources. But from the Sun perspective, like what matters less is who provides the software, and more that the platform is open, it's safe, and customer friendly, so people's devices can participate without being locked into a single company forever.
Great, great. Let's see. Oh, this is kind of an interesting one. I know that Puerto Rico is a major geographic location for Bitcoin mining. Are the numbers provided looking at all the solar for all use cases, or is it just feeding into the local grid?
So can you repeat that?
Sure. So AR Lane asks, I know that Puerto Rico is a major geographic location for Bitcoin mining.
Mhm.
So with the numbers that were provided, I believe on that slide for the CBES program, are they looking at all the use cases of solar, or is that energy just being fed back into the grid? So I guess,
Okay, I'm not sure. I'm not
yeah,
sure I
I think the
exactly
question is
understand the
like,
question.
and I think maybe I can answer this. I think I've been here long enough. So basically the power that is being depleted from the batteries, like the power that's being sort of crowdsourced, it's being fed directly back into the grid. So we don't know where that power is going. We don't know if it's being used for maybe not the most virtuous purposes or not,
Right, right.
Yeah,
Well, I guess I can put it a little more into context. I don't know how much of the power exactly is used in Puerto Rico for Bitcoin mining, but what we do know is that in Puerto Rico, especially during the summer, they have blackouts very, very often. And that's because of a very aged infrastructure there, a very damaged infrastructure due to hurricanes. So what happens is when they're predicting a supply shortfall, which sometimes can happen multiple times a week, the distributed power plants there gets kicked on, and then the battery energy is from tens of thousands of homes is dispatched into the grid, and it literally keeps the grid online. The entire island could have a blackout, and they are prevented by all of these batteries contributing to the grid.
cool. Thank you. A big question coming up. Can DPPs replace IOUs? And is there competition between IOUs and DPPs? And also, for my benefit, what is an IOU?
So investor-owned utilities or IOUs are again like the primary vehicle of how these programs get set up around the country. So, given the regulatory compact and just sort of where we are as a country, we're not getting rid of utilities anytime soon. But these programs, again, work really well with actually what utilities need. They need capacity, they need energy, they need to meet rising demand from AI and data centers and all of the things going on. And so, distributed power plants can be part of essentially a utility's resource portfolio. So when you're thinking of, all the other resources the utility has, like gas plant, coal plants, utility scale solar, distributed power plants can be part of that portfolio. And some estimates have shown that distributed power plants can potentially be up to 20% of a utility's resource mix by 2030. So again, really, fast scaling ability and to get those resources online. So, we see these programs not just as, demand side for you as a homeowner, but really supply side resources that are available on demand for the utility when they need it most. So hopefully that answered your questions. We all have our strong feelings about investor-owned utilities, but yeah, unfortunately, they're not going away anytime soon. But we can make sure that, we're advocating for the right programs for them to adopt.
Yeah. And I think this is coming up quite a bit, which is like if you don't own a solar and battery system, like can you participate in a DPP?
Yeah, you can. You don't necessarily have to have a solar and a battery system. It could also be, as we've mentioned, it could be an electric vehicle via bidirectional charging, or it could be via the electric vehicle by just pausing charging at peak times. You can sometimes enroll with just a smart thermostat, a water heater. These are all distributed energy resources which can be, used to reduce peak demand at peak hours. So they can all participate in a distributed power plant, but that depends on the specific distributed power plant and the eligible devices for that power plant in your area.
I think I
Yeah,
had someone. Oh, go ahead,
and
Shannon.
I would just highlight too, there's been a number of questions, like if you're just a solar owner, but you don't have battery storage, can you participate in a program? Sean, do you want to answer that directly too? Because that's, I think, a common question.
Yeah, so typically you need a battery to participate. I'm not sure, Shannon, I don't think there's a distributed power plant out there that only uses a solar system, right?
Right. Yeah. So unfortunately, the battery is what is dispatchable on demand. And particularly when we look at that like 7 to 9 p.m. time of the day, those of us that are just solar owners and don't have battery storage, typically your solar system isn't producing at peak at 7 p.m. in order for the utility to kind of call upon it on demand. So really to get the value for that peak reduction for a utility, you do need a battery system. The good news for batteries is that There still will be tax credits available into the early 2030s, potentially, depending on your financing and ownership model for a battery system. So if you are just a solar owner and you're thinking of adding battery storage, there may be some options available to you. I would really encourage folks to use our solar help desk that Laura put into the chat. If you're thinking about getting battery storage for your solar system, either and I would just add to the way I kind of talk about it is that you shouldn't get battery storage just to participate in a distributed power plant program. You should want battery storage for other reasons as well, whether that's, to better meet your home needs, to reduce your bills, because the peak events that Sean kind of talked about, we're talking about 60 days a year. So for the other 300 days of the year, your battery system is available, just the way you would use it on a regular day. So it's saving that, solar's extra solar during the middle of the day. You're able to use it to kind of reduce your bills into the evening. If you happen to have a utility with, time of use rates or other sorts of, peak demand charges, other sorts of, complications of your bill that make battery storage attractive. Or if you live in a state, unfortunately, where maybe one-for-one net metering has been rolled back or reduced, battery storage can provide some additional benefit for your solar system and just kind of how your solar system gets paid off as well. So, definitely reached out to us. As every homeowner situation is different. Your bill situation, who your utility is, what programs and rate design might be available to you. So we don't want to give kind of blanket advice on like whether a battery is a good thing or not for you, because it might be, it might not be, depending on your individual situation. I would also highlight Sun has a battery storage guide on its website, and Sean's been busy kind of working on an update to that guide. So look for that next year, and we hope to kind of include some distributed power plant program information within that guide too. So again, kind of the use case for your battery is typically to reduce home energy demand, but distributed power plants are becoming an additional way to get some value from a battery system.
I'll just add too that that value it gets spread around, right? Because the more folks that participate, the less need there is to build additional peaker plants and build all the infrastructure that is required to get that power into homes. And that's that 40 to 60% less cost, right? Is the fact that there isn't anything to build. It's really just about connecting and setting up. And also the equity piece, which is that in the best programs, maybe you just have a smart thermostat or a smart hot water heater. Those things can basically be controlled to a certain extent. And I think someone explained it where ultimately what they do is they either lower or raise temperatures in your home a few hours before an event. And then that way you've already adjusted your home to be using less power at the time of a peak event. And while there isn't a lot of compensation there, it can add up. Um, I think that does bring up a really great question too, which is how much freedom will we have with the timing when we make our batteries available to utility? So maybe just walking us through like the actual process. If you have a DPP program that you've signed up with your battery, like what happens during those peak hours?
Yeah, so typically, in our model DPP tariff, which is what we advocate for, um, we advocate for the ability to opt out of any individual event. I just want to say that first and foremost, and there are some great distributed power plant programs out there which allow you to do so. Um, if for whatever reason you want to retain your battery power or you don't want your thermostat adjusted on one evening, you should be able to do so. Um, Now, as far as the timing is typically, again, during those peak hours. So let's say about 5 or 6 to 9 p.m. That's when the most demand is being placed on the grid because people are all getting home from work, they're turning on lights, they're turning on washing machines, they're cooking, whatever it may be. So those are the peak hours. But again, ideally, and in a lot of programs, you can opt out of individual events.
Yeah, and I would just add that Sun's model policy also advocates for 24-hour advance notice of any grid event. And so a lot of utilities around the country participate in sort of energy day ahead markets where there's a lot of information available to utility based on weather modeling and kind of just the market situation present for that utility. So they'll know the next day whether or not there's going to be a peak power issue. So they can call events 24 hours in advance. And that allows the customers of that distributed power plant program to know that, their battery can be charged at full rate going into that peak event into the evening. So it does give you notice. So we advocate for that notice. It's pretty important for customers and the battery companies to be able to manage the resources effectively and to make sure that that capacity really is available, dispatchable on demand. We also advocate for programs where if there's sort of an extreme weather event about to happen in your area that could potentially cause the grid to go out, whether it's a hurricane, a wildfire, just whatever extreme weather event might be happening in your neck of the woods, that the utilities aren't allowed to call grid events during that time. And so your full battery capacity will be available for you as a homeowner for your personal kind of resilient needs if the grid does go out. So that's another, really important protection that we advocate for because it's something, again, people get batteries for a whole host of reasons. And we know folks in areas where there's extreme weather events are getting batteries, so they'll have that resource available when the grid goes out. So we want to make sure that is still a customer, it's still available to a customer in those extreme weather events.
Yeah. I have a question from Paul, which I think we answered in the presentation. I tried to answer a few folks, but what we talked about the best programs where you have a solar and battery that's as a battery that's participating, like you can earn up to 1,500 a year. And Paul's wondering why is that a limit or like why does that limit exist? Which is kind of a trick question because I think that's sort of the idea is like that's perhaps the most, but without getting too into the reads with the math, like can you explain like where that figure comes from?
Yeah, so the compensation for these programs is sort of twofold. Often programs will have what's called an upfront incentive, where you can think of it as sort of like an enrollment bonus that you receive at the time you enroll your battery in the program. And often programs that are designed to have that are in places where maybe there isn't as much battery storage already in place in a system. And so there's a need to kind of create that incentive for folks to go and get a battery and to install them. So we advocate for upfront incentives. And then the second piece is what's called a performance-based incentive. And so that is an incentive that you receive as a participant in the program when your battery is actually used in the program. And that is, depending on the program, either a kilowatt or a kilowatt hour incentive, often average through the course of a summer season. So as Sean mentioned, you can opt out to events, and so that just reduces the amount of your compensation based on the averaging for that summer kind of performance of your battery in the program. So as Laura said, the best programs in the country you can earn up to 1,500 is sort of an average for that program. But really the cap comes in from just how your battery is used by the utility, how it's deployed, and the resource that you might have available as a homeowner. So the size of your battery. So those are really kind of the main factors.
Cool. And I think that actually dovetails great into David Silman's question, which is, you can set limits on the amount of battery storage that's being used. Like it's not going to get fully depleted, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So again, in our model legislation, and typically this is how it's done, is that you're able to set the percentage of battery reserve that you want to reserve for your home. So you could set that as, you know, as high as 80% or as low as 20%, and you can discharge all your battery. It just depends on you, your home, and your needs.
Great. And then Vic asks, what does it mean to have for a state DP state? Sorry, what does it mean for a state to have a DPP in my state, and how do I get involved? Asking for Maryland, and for both homeowners and also those building homes that are maybe focusing on a net zero home building. It's a mouthful.
I didn't quite understand that question.
Sure, I think they're asking about the specifics of the Maryland program and kind of maybe if it even makes sense to be considering solar and battery in the home building process because there will be a program there.
Maybe a better question for Shannon, maybe more policy side of things.
Yeah, so we do expect a program to start in Maryland, hopefully next year. It's hard to know exactly what the details of that program will be because it's kind of a work in progress. So, again, the economics may shift a little bit depending on the ultimate program design and what the compensation values and availability will be. So it's a fairly, I don't want to give you business advice. So,
Sure.
feel free to, again, kind of reach out to us and we may be able to give you a little bit more kind of directed information, but also happy to just give you more information about the Maryland program. And I saw a couple of other questions about from Marylanders about how they can advocate for a good program. And we're really excited to get people involved in helping us advocate for a strong program before the commission as well.
Yeah, I think that brings up another great question from John W. Do investor-owned utilities view DPPs as competition? And are they reluctant to provide or interconnect agreements? What's been your experience with this, Shannon? Because I know you're doing a lot on that front.
Yeah, so 3 minutes to go. When we get the heaviest question, I don't know if I'm going to be adequately able to answer it at that time frame, but as you all know, utilities do not typically like distributed energy resources because it does compete with their kind of capital business model. But we're, interested in exploring ways where utilities can really see distributed power plants as partnerships. And our model bill includes things like performance-based rate making if utilities kind of meet goals and objectives of sizing up these programs to be meaningful for them. We also know utilities, they would never admit it, but the thing they care about most is keeping customers happy. And customers around the country right now are not happy with utilities because of rising rates. And so this is a way that they can keep power rates low. And it makes a lot of sense for them to kind of think about these programs again in a complementary way to what they're already doing as a utility.
Wow, that was actually eloquent and lovely. Yeah, the answer is it depends and it's complicated, right? So I think in the spirit of the fact that we have like about 2 minutes left, I will just sort of remind folks like we have a DPP page at Soul United Neighbors, which does run through a number of programs, which we think are great and are hopefully in your area. If you don't find what you're looking for, if you have questions, you can, of course, contact our help desk. It's a free service. And we can actually answer any of your questions, really about anything solar. It can be maybe you're having some issues with your system, or if you want to learn more about DPPs in your area. And then how do folks get more involved, especially if maybe there is legislation coming to your state, or you are interested in getting a program sort of stood up in your state? We have quite a few resources here. We're not staffed in every state, unfortunately, but we want to try to connect and create and basically get those people to join together and fight for their energy rights. So I think we have a bit more information on the take action. That's our action alert, right, Shannon? The I believe that is a way to just, take that initial step, like get involved, join our mailing list, and also contact your local representative or legislator and say, hey, we want this in our area. And if you are interested in a sort of a broader or more sort of involved partnership, please email us at the advocacy at solarunitedneighbors.org, and we can see if we can connect you with some of the working groups or steering committees that are perhaps already forming in your state.
Yeah, and I would just highlight that the Take Action link also takes you to our list of state advocacy actions that are available at Sun. So not just around distributed power plants, but around any of our current advocacy campaigns. And for those of you that might be from Minnesota, I would highlight there is an action for you around distributed power plants. So look for that on the Take Action website. And we're in process of getting people comments into the Utility Commission in Minnesota around distributed power plants.
And I'm not forgetting the fact that we still have about 45 open questions, even though we did a pretty good job. We answered like over 40 questions. Um, we're going to do our best to curate all of those to get folks answers, and we'll be sending a follow-up to this. If you didn't make it and you're not here, you won't hear this, but we will send a follow-up recording so you can sort of maybe go through and take a look at the slides a bit more carefully, but we'll also be sending a follow-up with some Q&A, so a really robust FAQ for folks to hopefully get their question answered, or at least point you in the right direction. So yeah, I just want to thank absolutely everyone that was able to make it today, and our amazing staff, the folks at Lingovox who were able to do the translation. We're working really hard to translate all of our materials. We want to be able to reach as many people as possible about distributed power plant programs. Um, and I don't know, I think, Kensley, is that it? Did we do it?
Great job. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And check your email for some follow-up resources later in the week. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Hi, everyone.